like the Oprah of shit sandwiches. And you get a shit sandwich. And you get a shit sandwich. I'm fucking shit sandwich Oprah here.
I didn't get one. Look under your seat. Oh my god, it's a shit sandwich.
Oh!
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the After Work Podcast. Today we're doing episode 16. We are back with my buddy Josh. I have been extremely busy, so I have not had a chance to actually set up the stupid soundproofing panels, and it's kind of a long drive for him to come to my place. So, it's going to be sometimes here, sometimes there. But anyway, we're going to get right into things. So, it's been a couple weeks, so we're going to be going over some of the stuff from the last couple weeks. Some of this is old news, some of it is newer news, some of it you might have heard, maybe you haven't heard it. We're going to get into all of it. All right, so a couple weeks ago, Biden requested $105 billion in military and related aid relating to the wars in Ukraine, Gaza, and wars not yet begun.
Yeah.
Of course. As well as a request for additional border funding and an extra $105 billion in mostly military spending, especially on top of the $886 billion military budget. We already spent so much money. Why do we need another $100 billion for some random place?
Yeah, and why are we spending so much money if we're not at war?
Not
technically.
At war. Not at war. The new request calls for tens of billions in additional military aid for Ukraine, more than 3 times the typical annual military aid to Israel. But here's the thing. I think this is old news because this was posted on October 25th. I don't know if he's still trying to get that or not, because it seems like we're focusing mostly on Israel now. It's more we're dealing with Israel than Ukraine. Like, I have a feeling that Zelensky's just over here like, hey, you guys remember me? Like, because we're so focused on all the stuff that's going on in Israel. But the request is, there's a chart here. Okay, so for Ukraine, military, $46.3 billion, non-military, $15.1 billion. I assume the non-military is, there was a news story that was talking about how we're funding their emergency services and like retirement funds and crap.
Oh, that mercy.
So we're not just giving them, missiles and stuff.
We're giving them
like,
retirement.
oh yeah, you're old. Let's, retire you. So yeah, so $61.4 billion is for Ukraine. Then for Israel, $14.1 billion, $13.9 billion is for military, and non-military is $200 billion. Oh, holy shit! The border's included in this. Oh, okay. We have to fucking sign yes, right?
And
that's why they put it in
and
here.
none of that money would be allocated to the border, period.
No. So it's $13.6 billion for the border. Customs and Border Protection, 5.3. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, 2.5. Migration and Refugee Assistance, 2.7. Was refugees, is that taking a forklift and raising the razor wire for them to get in? Is that the assistance that you're talking about? And that's another story we'll get into. Immigration and judges in courts, $1.4 billion. Citizen and Immigration Services, $755 million, and then just other $864 million.
$806 million
for unspecified. Please tell me, what do you think that's going to be used for?
Pockets.
Probably
pockets.
Either that or giving full auto belt fed things to
other
cartels in Mexico, Fast and the Furious. But like, really? And then 3.4 is for our military, the Navy, and then 199 is the Defense Production Act. But my thing is, okay, so I'm assuming the only reason they put this $13 billion in for the border is to try and get Republicans on board, because like, well, we're funding the border and we're funding Ukraine, but like, we're funding the border. And I'm sitting here going, wasn't the estimate to build the border wall $10 billion?
Yeah. So
this is a border wall and a little bit more.
Yeah.
And we're not going to build the wall. We're just going to give the money to and let's just say that we take this entire thing of $105 billion. That's 10 border walls.
Yeah.
At least 5 really good ones.
Yeah.
So why don't we just build the border wall and then do something else with the rest of that money.
I just don't know
I
why they think a wall is going to keep people out. I
Well,
mean,
it's done a
they're
pretty
going to
good job
tunnel.
so far in the places where it has worked.
They'll just tunnel under it if they build a complete wall. They'll
Well, the
find
thing is
there's
I
always going to
believe
be weak spots.
there's always weak spots, but it's not necessarily about stopping them. It's about slowing them down so Border Patrol can apprehend.
Yeah.
Right? It's never about like completely keeping them out because
But
that's going to be impossible.
But have you seen portions of our border? There are places,
Oh yeah,
like on rivers.
it's like a
what
fucking
are you
it's
supposed
like a
to do?
waist high chain link fence, or there's nothing there at all. But the places where there is a wall, it's like fucking a 30-foot wall. It goes about 8 feet into the ground, and so when they're tunneling underneath and stuff like that, Border Patrol monitors that. They monitor the wall, and in order to get up and over that section of wall, you have to have like a massive ladder. You have to have like
Yeah.
the time to set it up and get over it. And there have been stories where people are trying to go over the wall, and then the Border Patrol apprehends them because they figure it out before they get over.
And here's the weird thing that gets me about this wall too, and this is just my personal thing, is that if we get this wall built, from ocean to ocean, do you really want to be part of another country, not only that has divided a continent, but all the way from one ocean to another ocean? It will touch ocean to ocean. We couldn't even do hands across America in the 80s, and we're going to build a wall for segregation.
The problem is that it's not going to be a complete wall because there are certain parts there's certain mountainous regions
The
that they just can't
terrain
put a
just
wall.
will
The
not
terrain won't
suffice.
allow it.
Yeah.
But in those areas, it's kind of like the terrain is already deadly enough that it's kind of like you probably ain't going to cross. Only the most desperate people would try to
Yeah.
cross. And again, if you set up, watchtowers, listening posts, personally, I think that we should have a guard tower every 500 yards.
Good God, though.
So
See, but here's where it comes out.
Great Wall of China, this bitch.
I
And then we're good.
I know,
Like,
but there we go with East and West Berlin.
okay, but that was the same country. These are two separate countries.
I understand
we're cutting
that.
off Mexico full of cartels and fentanyl.
And I understand that's
over here, like,
and that's the best way to go about it to keep immigrants out. But dear God, I just wish there was a better way.
Well, the thing here's the
I just don't like the idea of a wall dividing a continent from ocean to ocean.
Well, here's the thing: is like it's not the first time it's been done. I mean, Israel is just walled entirely, and it basically keeps them from being blown up by Egypt, Jordan, and fucking Gaza.
But that's not dividing a complete continent. We're talking about dividing Central America.
Sure, well, but we already have that. But it's just a canal. It's called the Panama Canal. But again, it's not like we wouldn't be doing trade with them, and it's not like nobody would ever be able to come here legally. It's just you'd be, at the very least, taking out 90% of the drugs and the cartel and the gun running and stuff like that. Like, it's never going to stop. You can't stop all crime. You can't stop all illegal immigration, but you can lessen it to the point where it's manageable. Because right now we got like 500,000 people coming over every month, and Border Patrol can only deal with like 100,000 maybe.
Yeah.
And so you've got 400,000 people that, where'd they go? What are they doing? Who are they? We have no idea. Yeah. And so it's just crazy. And I don't have a news story for this, but this was one of the things that I saw that was on the itinerary. People are worried about Hamas terrorists possibly crossing the border. This was a couple weeks ago when they were calling for the Jihad Day, and that nothing really happened because not enough time for planning, I guess. The next time they call for it, something might happen, and you've got the possibility with that open border that terrorists are coming across. And from my understanding, the amount of terrorists that tried to cross under Trump was a lot less than with Biden because there were those harsher penalties in place, and the Border Patrol is actually doing their job. And now that they're not, we don't know who's coming in. Sure, okay, am I worried about the cartels? Yeah, but I'm way more worried about Muhammad coming across and doing something. So that's just me.
I mean, not to be biased on race or anything like that, but it's real hard to tell those people apart.
Yeah.
It really is. Dark hair, dark skin, and it's
Well, it would be one.
unless you've ever spent long periods of time in these countries
Yeah.
to be able to identify features of that race. It's just it's we're kind of brainwashed anyway to categorize people at a glance, and you just
Well,
think, oh, Mexican.
for me, the problem is it's okay. What's the quality of the people showing up, right? So you've got people who are coming with, let's say, their families, right? Okay, you got guy from the Middle East who's bringing his wife and kids, right? And he says, I used to work for the Afghan National Army. Okay, you're I mean, he could still be a terrorist, but like chances are you know, he's probably just bringing his family, right? Because of everything that happened in the Middle East,
Yeah,
he's trying to escape. Okay, but then you have groups of 3, 4, 5 military-age males
yeah,
that are
coming in with
coming
weapons.
through. Not even
They're
with
coming
weapons,
through with rifles.
just the fact that they're coming in as a group of 3 to 4 military-age males, no family, no wife, no kids, and then
Yeah,
when you ask them questions about their families, they have conflicting answers across different interrogations. It's like, okay, that's a problem.
yeah,
And then you eventually go and you do some paperwork, some sleuthing. You find out that one of these guys is on the terror watch list, and then you have to look at these other guys and wonder.
yeah,
It's like, okay, and there are multiple stories of that.
yeah.
So it's like, okay, if they're coming across the southern border because it's so fucking porous, what, like, do you think that we shouldn't have a border wall, like, because of that? Because that alone is border wall territory for me,
Yeah,
besides the cartels.
yeah.
Because, like,
And there's
the
always been
drug
a
trade
percentage.
cartels don't affect me as much as that probably would.
And there's always been a percentage of OTMs that come through the border that's other
Yeah.
than Mexican.
Other
So
than
it's
Mexican.
yeah, OTMs, man. And so it's still going to be a certain percentage now,
Yeah.
and considering how many enemies we have, I'm sure that number has increased also.
And that's the funniest part to me, though, is people are always like, "Oh, well, you're fine with non-Mexicans coming." It's like, no, I'm not. I don't give a fuck if they're Swedish. I don't care. Don't come in here illegally. I don't like.
Yeah,
It's not because they're Mexican that I'm saying this. What I'm saying is, it's because the border is open down there, so everybody
yeah.
comes through that way.
I've thought about, what would it be like to live in a different country, but I know that if I go there and I want to be a citizen, I'm going to ask if I can be here and what I have to do so.
But here's the other thing too, is like a lot of these people that are saying like they're coming here for asylum and stuff, the way that asylum seeking normally is supposed to work is the nearest friendly country is the one you go to. So
Yeah,
if you're in, let's say, Venezuela and you're being like politically persecuted or whatever, and one of the neighboring countries is friendly
yeah,
and they don't, persecute you for your political or religious beliefs or whatever, you're supposed to go there. Not
yeah,
travel through 15 countries up through Mexico to get to the United States and then be like, oh, I'm seeking asylum from freaking Ecuador or Venezuela. It's like,
yeah,
you did not know.
yeah,
Like,
no,
our policy is to send you back, but for some reason we're not.
yeah. There's a lot of things and policies we have in place that aren't taking place at the moment.
Yeah.
That would help deter at least a small faction of this. If we don't start taking steps, even if it's in small numbers to start out, we're never going to get it under control. And we're getting to a point where there are so many tipping points with so many factions of this or that. We've got the border that could tip. We got people coming over willing to do us harm through there. We've got uh, what were they talking about? Oh, it was about a month ago with the Chinese secret police departments in major cities that were sending intel back to China on their Chinese citizens that
Oh,
were
yeah.
there and making sure they were doing all their
Yeah, the
stuff. And
Chinese police stations that for
yeah,
some reason were allowed
we
to
got a
operate here.
we got a government that is clearly and blatantly not giving a crap about us anymore, willing to do us harm, and
Hmm.
we've got the government putting the people against each other so much that at any point it could be a civil uprising against the people against people. What Agenda 2030? Let's just go down some rabbit holes. Pole shifts, global warming. I mean, they give
Yeah.
us so much crap to worry about now.
Well, speaking of the government being basically against us, so You heard about the story where Texas basically was like, we're going to deal with our own border since the feds won't do it, and then they put the razor wire buoys in the river because that's the border between us
Yeah,
and them, and the government, the feds basically were like, yeah, you got to take that down,
yeah.
right? Well, now, why is it doing that? Now, look at this story. So, Texas Border Patrol responded to razor wire lawsuit by bringing out a forklift. What happened is, so the feds basically told Texas Border Patrol to take down the buoys with the razor wire. So they were like, okay, we'll just put it on the land instead because you said we couldn't put it in the water. Well, then the Border Patrol comes out and goes, yeah, you can't do that either. And there's a group of migrants, like a couple hundred of them, just sitting there behind the razor wire because they can't cross. So Border Patrol takes a forklift and raises the razor wire up and lets the migrants in.
What? That's
What? And I'm going, okay, hold on, hold on, hold
it's
on.
madness. That's madness.
So it makes no sense to me because you're saying the law, the reason they said that they could do it, right, legally based on the United States laws is because they had crossed the river and they were in the United States. So the razor wire being there was illegal because it wasn't actually on the border. And it's like, but you said to
Yeah,
take the buoys down that prevented them from entering the United States in the first place.
yeah.
So hold on, you can't shift the goalposts. You can't say, okay, you gotta take the buoys down because reasons. And then when they cross into the United States, then be like, well, now they're here. It's like you made it so that was possible.
Yeah, yeah, you just
Like,
created the major loophole.
yeah. And like I was trying to show you the freaking picture of it because
And
and look
pictures of it.
and look how many people are sitting there ready to go. Like,
Dear God.
yeah. And apparently that's perfectly fine. And I'm like, dude, so you're gonna sit here and tell me we need to spend all this money on Ukraine and all this other money, and we could have already built these walls to
Yeah,
make this not possible,
yeah.
or at the very least, let Texas do what it needs to do. Because look, I don't understand why immigration is only a federal thing. Like, why is it only the feds
Yeah.
can deal with it when the states have their own sovereignty? So,
Well, at least we got someone on the right side trying to get in control of the largest
yeah,
uh, zone in Texas that has Mexican border attached
hmm
to it. And
but it's not working too well when the freaking border patrol comes in and just undoes everything that our National Guard put out. Like,
yeah. Well, we if Brandon Herrera gets in office, I'm gonna love to see what the hell happens, man, because it's gonna be buck wild. Just to
uh,
sit back and watch him. I mean, I would definitely start watching
it still
all of these
requires
things going on just to watch him steam in the background and grit his teeth when people are talking
it's
mad ignorant
but
shit about
just him
guns.
getting in it and gonna do as much as you probably think because yeah, he's gonna be that district, but
He's not
it's
gonna keep his mouth shut. It's gonna be
yeah.
great.
Well, the thing is, Border Patrol isn't to the feds, and so it's like
Yeah.
unless a lot more members of Congress get on board with doing things, it's gonna end up with him just bitching and moaning.
But it's still gonna be funny.
It's gonna be hilarious. But vote Brandon Herrera for Congress in Texas.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, like it's just one of those things. It bugs me that we as a state are not allowed to do what we need to do
Yeah.
without big daddy government, the
And
feds.
And then we can't ship them up north to be their problem because they won't let us handle our problem. And then they
Well,
want to
we
fuss about.
can. We do it, and it's
Well,
hilarious
we've done
because
it.
my favorite thing was when we bust what was it? I think it was 50 immigrants to Martha's Vineyard,
Yeah.
and they thought that that was being overrun, and they were like, they went into crisis mode, and they actually held a press conference where
Yeah.
like, we can't do this, we can't take care of it. We got 50 migrants. This is too much, and I'm like, oh, 50 is too much. Now try 50,000. Try 500,000 coming into our state.
Yeah.
So shut the hell up. Like
Yeah.
50? Come on.
And what kills me is that the social or mainstream media and social media won't allow any of these images or photographs or stories
Yeah.
about these small migrant cities popping up everywhere around major
Yep.
cities. And it's ridiculous. And
Yep.
and then how are we going to put all these people in the workforce without pushing out people
Well,
willing tax?
the people don't integrate. Like they move here and then they do those pop up like little like towns or
Mhm.
like little communities of their own, and they never assimilate. They never learn English. They stay speaking Spanish in their community, and then it's like now you've got two cultures
Yeah.
in the same place, and that doesn't ever end well.
But they do have to integrate into the workforce.
They do, but
But they do it illegally with illegal social security numbers, pushing legitimate taxpayers and legitimate workers out of the workforce.
well, even if they get their like work papers or whatever, a lot of time they still won't even learn English. Like there's people that work in the
No.
warehouse that I work at that they don't know any English or they know like enough, just barely enough to like do the job, but like they don't talk with anybody. Like it's so bad that they hold meetings in both languages.
Yeah, I've seen
And
that.
so I'm sitting there and they're speaking in the English one, and then I have to sit there for 30 seconds to a minute while they speak in Spanish, and then I'm like losing focus, and I'm like, okay, like I don't get like I get we're like the company's trying to be like inclusive and all that stuff, and I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like my company offers $1 pay raise to anybody who learns English or Spanish,
Yeah.
and they refuse to do it.
Good God.
Now, I kind of already wanted to learn Spanish, but I don't feel like I necessarily need to learn Spanish because it's like I live in an English speaking country. Like it doesn't make sense for me to.
Even in the 90s, I knew that it was
But
a needed trait to have or
mhm,
skill to have because
I know enough to kind of
I don't
converse a little bit, but
I don't know how it is now, but when I was graduating class of 2000 and you had to have Spanish credits, you had to pass Spanish to be able to graduate.
yeah,
And that made sense to me because in Texas, I already knew, and I knew how many Mexicans were in the school with us and how many of them couldn't speak English. But
yeah,
they're in here trying to learn English, or at least we thought they were. And so I was like, well, at least try to learn Spanish. But then it's useless because it's proper Spanish, and
yeah,
it's not sleet or
yeah.
street or slang Spanish that
I took
everybody else
I took
speaks.
Spanish for 3 years, in middle school and high school. The problem was my I was forced to take it.
Yeah,
And so I didn't retain any of it because I was forced to. Because I wanted to learn either German or Japanese,
yeah,
and I told my parents that, and they're like, "Your family's Puerto Rican. You need to learn Spanish, so you're gonna take Spanish." And once they said that, I was just like, "I'm just gonna do the bare minimum to pass this class because I know I need it for my uh, for my credits." So I know I have to take a language, but I was like, I wanted to take this one, but you're making me take this one. I'm just not gonna retain any of it. Now, later in life, I'm kind of wishing that I had, you know, actually paid attention because, like, now I can use it. Because
yeah.
I'll tell you, some of these women are pretty good looking, and I cannot talk to them because they
Oh
speak only
Lord,
Spanish.
right?
Like, a match was one on Tinder the other day, and like, I'm sitting there using Google Translate to try to talk to this chick, and she's just like, I can't wait to hear you speak Spanish, and I'm like,
You know,
okay,
speaking
like.
no Spanish.
I said something and she kind of laughed at it, and then she's just like, whatever. But no,
Yeah, I'd like to hear you speak English. That's what I'd tell her.
well, she did. She
Yeah,
spoke way better than I could do Spanish. So
yeah. Oh, so you're not even going to be able to laugh at her bad English because it's not that bad. She's going to
exactly.
laugh at
So
you. She's going
yeah,
to
yeah,
crack up your horrible Spanish.
yeah. But that's
And people think that this whole Mexican cartel thing is pretty new to the
it's really
board.
not.
Well, in the 90s, I had a job, and one of the guys I worked with was this short little muscle bound Mexican
Dude, you
dude.
look like a bulldog.
Yeah, no prison tattoos or nothing like that. Spoke broken English pretty good, and we hung out after work a few times, drank.
Yeah,
He was seemed to be a cool guy. Well, come to find out, when he wasn't working construction, he was running mega tonnage of cocaine for the Mexican mafia.
Jesus.
And so much so that his nickname with all the Mexican guys was Little Mafia. And
Jesus.
just tonnage, man. The stories he told me of
Right
where,
through the no walled border.
yeah, and in the 90s, there was even less wall.
Yeah.
And dude, it was just
Oh, but
insane.
back then they wanted the crack to come in.
But he didn't even, I mean, we were living in Freestone County, man. That was so far away from the border. That's butthole central of Texas right there. And, I mean, you got to drive 12, 13 hours to the fucking border. And he's,
Well, but when you're getting paid, $50,000 per
yeah,
load, you'll drive 13 hours. That's
yeah.
fine for you, you know. Like,
And he never had a legal vehicle, but he always had a new one. And he
well, it's
pop up.
because they put all the they replaced the like bumpers with freaking cocaine and all that stuff.
But
So
if
you know,
that's, and I mean, some of these cars were not used for that though. Like, cause you're not transporting tonnage of
no.
cocaine in an MG midget. You're not doing it.
Well, it might not have been in the car. It might have been in the Mexican.
Oh God.
But like, yeah, I mean, he might have been, taking it in some of the cars, and some of the cars they might have just like, well, like this is the car that we left here. So after you cross the border, you can get back home
I
because you're
don't
dropping
know.
off a van full of crack or whatever,
It gets me though, because everybody thinks it's not that big a deal, but it's right
Well, now it's fentanyl,
there
and the fentanyl, from what I hear, is coming from China because
through
they're
Mexico.
through Mexico because they're like, well, we don't have to necessarily go to war with the United States to
And
wage war.
why is so much of the cartel gear Chinese?
Well, because it's cheaper. They probably order it off of Wish.
It's
You know,
no, it's mil spec Chinese
yeah,
military gear.
they probably order it from Wish from very specific vendors. The vendors, and they get it. Because for what, like $5 for a good vest or whatever from China,
Stuff
so
full of
they can
fentanyl.
spend so they can spend. That's probably why they get it so cheap. It's because they're like, well, we'll send it to you, but we stuff with fentanyl too, and then you mix that with all your stuff.
Yeah.
But it's probably because they want to save money on all the other stuff. I mean,
Well, even
RPG rockets aren't cheap.
even their personnel carriers, man.
Oh
Like
yeah,
all their shit. It's wild.
but I mean, it realistically, what it probably is China doesn't mind sending them that stuff because it's basically a proxy war on the United States.
Yeah, and that's what's killing me, dude. They got to stop all that proxy war crap.
Well, it's the same with
There's
us
no
in
reason why
Ukraine.
any country should be giving any drug cartel anything.
Well,
But of
that's the
course,
United States.
well, I know because I know.
We gave those cartels full auto machine guns, and
But we're sitting here bitching about how our country's so fucked off as it
yeah,
is. This is the exact kind of stuff that
well,
everybody needs to quit
we
doing.
also funded Al Qaeda and ISIS. Like, we funded all of our enemies
I
because they
know.
were fighting someone we didn't like in some other country. Like the whole reason that Al Qaeda came to be and the Taliban was because we were funding them to fight the Russians in a proxy war in Afghanistan, and then they
Yeah.
turned on us. Like,
That
what we need to
happens a
do is
lot.
just stop doing that, because the next thing is, we've been funding Ukraine. We're basically in Ukraine. Now we're
Yeah.
funding Israel, and now we dispatched that strike carrier group, and now we've got special forces, and like we talked about last time, where I found out that the guys that were in that photograph that
Mhm.
got leaked, it was Delta Force.
No, Lord.
It was. So our top tier operators is what got leaked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The
So
elite.
So they're down there on the ground doing hostage rescue missions in Gaza and stuff, and you're telling me that we're not involved? Come on, we're there. We're
Yeah.
there, right? Like,
We're
and now
everywhere.
it's ramping up even more because was it the next story we got 24 attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria. And it's U.S. forces in Iraq and Syria have been attacked with drones or rockets at least 24 times in recent days. And this is like bases and um, embassies.
Yeah.
There were riots outside a couple embassies as
Yeah.
well. Um, At least 5 of these attacks were launched after U.S. forces struck 2 facilities in eastern Syria used by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and affiliated groups during the early morning on Friday. This was, I think, oh wait, yeah, this was on October 30th, so this was the day before Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Latest attack on Monday used multiple rockets to target Al Assad Air Base in western Iraq, and other multi-rocket attacks were launched against forces at Green Village and mission support site Euphrates in Syria. On Sunday, a one-way attack drone was used against U.S. forces at a base near Al Shadidi. Is that how you say that? Al Shadidi in northeastern Syria. And on Thursday, another one-way attack drone targeted U.S. coalition forces at Al Assad Air Base in Iraq. And these are Iranian-backed militia groups that are supported by Iran, and of course, we hold Iran responsible for these groups.
Yeah.
So now we're gearing up for a war with Iran because we're thinking that Iran was the ones who backed the Hamas incursion into Israel
Yeah.
and are still backing them, and now they're attacking our bases. And we've always wanted to go to war with Iran. Why do you think we
Yeah.
invaded Afghanistan and Iraq? Because they're right on either side of Iran.
Yeah.
So now we're involved in Ukraine. We're involved in the Israel.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're gearing up for something with Iran. It's hard to keep Iran and Iraq straight. We're gearing up for something possibly with Iran.
Yeah.
And then we're blind. What happens when we get blindsided by China and Taiwan?
Yeah.
So now we're spread too thin. We've given a bunch of our first of all, we left a shit ton of our stuff in fucking Afghanistan that we could have used that they're going to use against us. Some of that probably was involved in the Hamas attack. Then we were given Abrams tanks to fucking Ukraine. Now we're giving rockets and stuff to Israel. What's happening to our stockpile? It's getting lower and lower and lower and lower.
Yeah.
Just like our oil reserves when Biden decided that he was going to throw those out to the American public instead of, I don't know, let people, drill for oil.
Yeah.
And now we're looking at a possible war with China. And it's like, okay, if that happens, what do we have to fight with?
Yeah. Nothing.
Not nothing, because we fucking sent it all to places we shouldn't have.
Or gifted it to enemies.
Or left it. Like,
no, you didn't leave it. They gifted it.
Yeah, I personally believe
it was a payoff.
I personally believe, and this is not supported wholly, but I personally believe that it was a strategic way to stay involved in the Middle East because we didn't want to pull out. Nobody wanted to pull out. Trump goes in and says we need to pull out. He wanted to pull out of everywhere, including Syria, including Kuwait and all this stuff. And specifically in Syria, he wanted to pull out, and his generals, the upper leadership, lied to him and said we're pulling them out, and then added more troops and kept lying to Trump until he was out of office.
Yeah.
So you want me to believe that the deal that he struck with the Taliban was supported by anybody in the administration besides him and maybe some of his close people? No, of course it wasn't. They didn't want to leave because it makes money, right? So what's Biden to do? Okay, well, we'll pull out and just leave shit there. And then when that shit gets used against some of our allies, then we have the reason to go back.
Yeah.
So I think that it was all intentional.
Could be.
There's no reason to abandon an airbase in the middle of the night to go and evacuate from a civilian airport that isn't fortified. There's no way. And I've had people be like, "Oh, well, you don't know what they know." And I'm like, "What could you possibly know that would make that a tactical and logical decision?" I don't think there's anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. No. Asked by VOA on Monday whether the recent attacks are a sign that U.S. deterrence is not working, a senior defense official replied, "Iran's objective for a long time has been to force a withdrawal of the U.S. military from the region. What I would observe is that we're still there." Nah, shit.
Yeah.
Like, we left for, 2 days, and then we were like, oh, they're using our weapons against us, gotta go back. Like, one American F-16 and two F-16 fighter jets used precision munitions against weapons storage facilities and ammunition facilities near Abu Kamal early Friday. Uh, the Pentagon assesses the strikes successfully hit the targets, and it is still looking at casualty numbers. These precision self-defense strikes are a response to a series of ongoing and mostly unsuccessful attacks against U.S. personnel in Iraq and Syria by Iranian-backed militia groups that began on October 17th. The United States will not tolerate such attacks and will defend itself, its personnel, and its interests. Spillover into Syria is not just a risk, it has already begun. So yeah, like we're sitting here going, yeah, we're gonna fight back if this starts going somewhere. It's like, dude, we just left the Middle East. Why are we dealing with any of this stuff? All it's gonna do is get to the point where we're spread so thin that when we actually get attacked by China or whoever else,
we're just gonna get blindsided.
We're gonna get blindsided. It's gonna be a freaking another Pearl Harbor, and then another draft is gonna happen, and I'm gonna get dragged into this shit that I don't want to be dragged into. Okay, like. Well, if it ends up being like anything like Ukraine, you'll get dragged into it too. No. Ukraine has been drafting 55-year-old men.
I've got medical conditions that keep me out.
They don't care.
Yeah, they do, because my heart conditions.
Have you seen the fatties that are in the military right now? Dude. They lowered it. They lowered the medical exemptions to allow recruits in.
I'm 42 now, but at 40, I'd already had 2 heart attacks and a stroke. If I put
boots on the ground,
I put boots on the ground, I'm going to die right there, and then I'm just going to be in everybody's way, and they know this.
That might actually do it for you. I'm hoping that they don't take me because I work in a warehouse that produces parts for Lockheed Martin and Bell and stuff, but they probably would anyway. But still, like
I was working for an aviation company that produced parts for Bell and for Black Hawk helicopters, and my employer, I voiced to him that I was concerned that, you know, things might go south, business is going to be booming, but then they're going to need us all to go to run and gun. And he's like, oh no, if there's a draft, you don't have to worry about going if you work here.
Yeah.
So I was like, so that was confirmation already that if you work in an industry that produces anything for any military whatsoever, or for our military whatsoever, any parts or anything, you're not getting drafted. You will be used for the war effort.
Hopefully, because I really don't feel like going into a war that they started that I didn't want to be dealing with. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Because it's one thing if we're minding our own business and then all of a sudden China's, storming the beaches of fucking California. That's one thing, okay? But it's a whole nother thing if we are involved in all these other bullshit wars, and then China decides that because we're weak, because we are spread out, then they can attack. And then I'm like, that was fucking our fault. Like, that was on y'all, and y'all are gonna send me to go fight in this war that shouldn't have ever happened in the first place. Nah, I don't want to do it.
Yeah,
like,
and that happened in Vietnam. That's why everybody was protesting that. Nobody wanted to go because it wasn't our war, and people are just getting demolished over there.
Pointless to be involved.
Yeah,
like, oh, we're stopping communism. Okay. In the frickin' in Asia, like what?
And we didn't stop it. I mean, the problem's still there.
In Korea, we kind of did because you have North and South Korea, and technically we won in Vietnam. So a lot of people don't think that we did, but we kind of did. So the way that it went down, from my understanding, is in Vietnam we were fighting, and we actually made them sign a peace agreement they didn't want to sign.
Yeah.
And then it was 2 years later that they restarted the war and then solidified taking control of the country. So really, we kind of won, but then they just, started again a couple of years later. Now, I could be wrong on that, but that's my understanding of it. So when people are like, oh, well, we didn't win, it's kind of like, I mean, we did, but it still amounted to nothing. It wasn't like, North and South Korea, where it's been a whole separate country for decades at this point, so.
Yeah. Well, hell, I'd never even heard of the Vietnam War until 20 years after it happened. Didn't even happen until 10 years. Yeah. 10 years before I was born, somewhere in there, roughly.
Like, we barely learn about that stuff in
they don't tell you much about it at all.
It's like World War I, you kind of, sort of, it's kind of like a lead into World War II, and then, like, World War II is, like, a good semester of your class, and then it's, like, this war, Korean War, Vietnam, this, all
Real
like in a
fast.
really, really
Yeah.
fast, and then they're just like, oh, and then 9/11, this and that, and then it's like over, and you're like, what the fuck? Like we didn't like it's like Civil War, World War II are like the two big focuses,
Yeah.
a Revolutionary War. But even then, sometimes depending on the class, like Revolutionary War wasn't even that deep. It was like, yeah, we
Yeah.
fought the British, we won, and then racism and Civil War, and then they like focused on that.
Yeah.
And then again with the racism and the World War in World War II, and I'm just like I'd like to know more about why we were in Korea, why we were in Vietnam, but like they
Yeah.
don't focus on that.
No,
So
they don't tell you
our education
why.
system is fucking trash.
Yeah, very much so. This one's getting antsy. She gonna end up messing up all the footage.
Let me see. Uh, the FDA should recall the adulterated Pfizer COVID vaccine. Robert Malone. If I remember correctly, I believe Robert Malone was the one who invented the uh, mRNA like process.
Yeah.
Um, so it says Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine is adulterated due to the undisclosed presence of a DNA sequence, experts say. That should prompt a recall by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, according to Dr. Robert Malone, a vaccine expert whose work has been cited by Pfizer. Uh, let's see. The vaccine contains a simian virus SV40 DNA sequence. Authorities in Canada confirmed. Authorities found the sequence after outside researchers discovered the sequence in the shot. The whole SV40 virus can cause cancer, prompting its removal from polio vaccines in the past. While the primary genetic sequence of the virus associated with cancer is not in Pfizer's vaccine, there's a portion of the sequence called a promoter enhancer which can get things into the nucleus, so that is a concern. Due to the presence of the sequence, some experts say the FDA should find the product adulterated, which is defined under the federal law as having strength, quality, or purity differing from the official compendium. Congress directed the FDA that if tests crack on the screen that if tests are run on a drug suspected of being adulterated and the drug fails to meet the standards in the compendium, then there's a health hazard to direct the manufacturer to issue a recall. If the manufacturer then fails to issue a recall, seizure should be considered, the law states. General policy is that if there's adulteration and reasonable risk of toxicity, then there must be immediate action. This is a core mandate to the FDA from Congress to prevent adulteration of drugs, medical devices, and food. And then the next question is that adulteration? Is it associated with a reasonable risk of toxicity in humans? And in my opinion, absolutely, says Dr. Malone. If the FDA does not take action, state attorney generals could move to seize the vaccines due to the adulteration. We do not know what was disclosed. Health Canada said sponsors such as Pfizer are expected to identify biological functional DNA sequences within a plasmid such as the SV40 sequence when submitting applications for clearance. Pfizer did provide the full DNA sequence of the plasma, but did not specifically identify the SV40 sequence. So basically, they lied about it.
Hmm.
So like, we'll provide you with data, but we're not going to highlight this part that could like, I don't know, cause cancer that was
Yeah.
taken out of other vaccines. So that way we could get the Emergency Authorization Act and like all this other stuff.
Hey, stop.
So we don't know what was disclosed to the FDA prior to authorization. If it was disclosed, then its presence is not unexpected. If it was not disclosed, I think there's a case that this is adulteration. So they disclosed that to Canada, but we have no idea what they told the FDA.
Yeah.
So maybe they did tell them, maybe they didn't. If they didn't tell them, I think okay, pull it.
Yeah.
If they did tell them, what the fuck, FDA?
Yeah.
Like,
Why
so either way, it's a what the hell, you know? So
FDA's paid off anyway. We can't trust anything.
I don't
anymore.
trust the FDA. I barely trust the CDC, especially after the whole COVID thing. Like before then, I could probably trust the CDC. Now it's like I don't know what to I don't know what to hell. Some of my own doctors I didn't even trust.
Yeah.
Like I'd go in and be like, yeah, what you're telling me, it doesn't make sense. Like I've done my own research and what you're telling me doesn't seem to make any amount of sense. They'd be like, "Oh yeah, you wear a mask," and I'm like, "Fuck, how's the mask gonna stop me from getting it? Like, I don't get it. No." And now
Yeah.
we know it fucking didn't.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now that's just one part of the COVID news, though. So we actually have another story that's even fucking worse.
Oh no.
How Pfizer hid nearly 80% of COVID vaccine trial deaths from regulators.
Oh God. 80%?
80%.
All
Yeah.
right. They should be shut down
Yeah.
immediately.
So, according to analysis published this month in the International Journal of Vaccine Theory, Practice, and Research of Pfizer Biotech COVID-19 vaccine clinical trial data, the vaccine makers hid fatality data from regulators in order to qualify the Emergency Use Authorization Act. So, not only did they lie about what was in it, but now they're lying about the amount of deaths during the trial to get the authorization.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we wonder why all these people are suddenly fainting and falling that are under the age of 20 in like professional sports and just randomly fucking
Isn't that
nah
what
shit.
isn't that
Like,
what messed up Justin Bieber and his old lady too?
probably. Like, but the thing is, people are like, well, it could be COVID, it could be after effects from COVID, it could be the vaccine. And I'm like, dude, I've had COVID 5 times, and I have never felt like I'm just gonna fall on the ground and die and my heart explode,
Yeah.
right? But then I have friends who have the vaccine who sometimes are like, dude, I get really fatigued all of a sudden. I wish I hadn't taken it. Like,
Yeah.
so that's anecdotal, I know, but we've seen a lot of anecdotal, and at some point, multiple instances of anecdotal makes a pattern.
Yeah. Well, like I said, 42, 2 heart attacks and a stroke, no vaccines. I've had COVID 4 times.
Yeah.
And it was nothing more than a head cold
Exactly.
each time. I mean, the one variant I did lose taste and smell, but not very long.
See, you had it easier than me then because the first time I had it, I think it was before we really knew what it was, and I got like 107 fever. I had to go home from work. The second time I had it, I was in bed for like a week. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. The third time I had it, it felt like somebody jabbed like a trident or a fork in my throat,
Yeah.
and like it just wouldn't go away. Like
Yeah.
it just felt like searing pain for weeks on end.
Mm.
And then the last 2 times it was basically just, like, I'm sick.
Yeah.
Or whatever. So like eventually my body figured it out, but at first it was kind of bad. So the fact that you with all those medical issues
Yeah.
were just like, oh, it's like the fucking flu. Like,
And I had strep throat last month, and
Yeah.
that was worse than any of the COVID
Yeah.
variants.
are you sure it wasn't COVID? Like, did you test?
No, I didn't.
Exactly. So like nowadays, people don't think they have the flu anymore. Like it used to be, you think you have the flu. Now
Yeah.
everybody's like, I think I have COVID. Like
Well, every flu is a COVID
Yeah.
variant anyway.
Well, like I'll be at the bar and I'll have a friend there and who's like, I kind of feel under the weather, and I'm just like, what, you got the flu or something? Like, no, I think it's COVID, and I'm like, oh, like I don't care anymore. Like, who
Yeah.
the fuck cares?
Well, if you think you
But-
got COVID, go home for one.
Well, yeah, just like, what the fuck are you doing here? But
Yeah.
but even so, it's like if you give it to me, it's to the point where it's not going to be that bad. It's kind of just like a whatever,
Mhm.
It's, I mean, I remember people used to come to work and they're like, I got the flu, and nobody fucking paid attention. It's like, okay, if you give me the sniffles, I get a free day off from work. Like, I'm fucking,
Yeah.
But so anyway, continuing on, Pfizer delayed reporting vaccine associated deaths among the clinical trial participants until after the U.S. Food and Drug Admin issued an emergency use authorization for the product. The vaccine makers also failed to account for a large number of subjects who dropped out of the trial.
Hmm.
Together, these strategies kept regulators and the public ignorant of a
Sit ignorant.
3.7 times fold increase.
Hmm.
That's almost 4 times increase in cardiac deaths among subjects who received the vaccine. The authors of the paper described it as a forensic analysis defined by the United States Institute for Standards and Technology as the use of scientific methods or expertise to investigate crimes or examine evidence that might be present in a court of law. Let's see. Investigators looked at each of the 28 deaths occurring between July 2020 and the start of phase 2 of 3 in March. The end date culminating in Pfizer Biotech's 6-month interim report. This trial phase involved 44,060 subjects. Half received a dose of the vaccine, half got a placebo. Uh, the trial was unusual because at week 20, after the FDA issued the emergency use, I'm just going to call it the EUA.
Okay.
After the FDA issued the EUA for the vaccine, trial subjects in the placebo group were allowed to switch to the vaccinated group and receive their the actual shot. Switching from the placebo group to the vaccinated group, or unblinding, normally occurs when the benefit of the drug is so great that not treating subjects becomes unethical. For example, investigators might consider unblinding a cancer trial if at some point all untreated patients deteriorated or died, but all treated patients improved. Unblinding conditions may be specified in the study design, but they usually involve input or review from medical ethicists. So, of the 20,000 unblinded, I'm just going to round these numbers because I don't feel like saying the whole thing. Of 20,000 unblinded placebo subjects, about 19,000 received one dose of the vaccine. Normally, the decision to unblind would be based on the product's safety and effectiveness in reaching certain endpoints or objectives. Endpoints for a drug prevent trial infections might be a positive test for self-reported COVID-19 illness, illnesses requiring hospitalization or death. But perhaps unexpectedly, after 33 weeks, the data revealed no significant difference between deaths in the vaccinated and placebo groups for the initial 20-week placebo-controlled portion of the trial. After week 20, after most former placebo subjects had received the vaccine, deaths among those in the vaccine group continued unabated. So it just kept going at the same rate. The authors revealed inconsistencies between data presented in Pfizer's 6-month report and subsequent publications. Most importantly, we found evidence of an over 3.7-fold increase in the number of deaths due to cardiac events in the vaccinated individuals compared to those who received only the placebo. This means that 79% of relevant deaths were not recorded in time to be included in Pfizer's regulatory paperwork. By not including relevant subject deaths in the case report, Pfizer obscured cardiac adverse event signals, allowing the EUA to proceed unchallenged. So the only reason they were able to get the emergency authorization was because they fucking lied about how many people died.
Yeah.
Like,
that red flags right there. I mean, your numbers going up like that, and all of it being cardiac related.
Yeah. And here's the thing. Even knowing this, the government gave all the pharmaceutical companies blanket immunity from liability. So like, does this news is this news going to take that? What, like, is Congress going to do something about this and allow people to sue? Because they should. Because they lied, they shouldn't get that protection.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why I never got the vaccine, because I had heard about this stuff, whispers in the dark, and I'm like, I'm not going to risk it.
Yeah.
Especially because they're not liable. Like, you give me something that fucks me up, and I can't sue you. Why would I take that thing? No, thank you. And now knowing this, I am so glad that I didn't. My best friend, he's like, dude, I wish I hadn't, but I did.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, at least you didn't get 2 and 3 and 4 and all those, but
yeah, and it's I definitely wasn't going to have them jab me with something that was only on the market for this long already, considering that I've been taking ibuprofen and indigestion medicines all my life, and now these things are causing cancers and deaths.
Yeah.
So it really makes me think twice about what I'm ingesting into my body that nature doesn't intend. So the only drugs I take over the counter or under the counter or over, in fact, are those that legitimately I have to stay alive at this point. So it's like the blood pressure, the blood thinners, and all that stuff because of the stroke. But Like when it comes to ibuprofen, things like that, now I just don't even take it. I deal with the pain. It's part of life anyway.
Yeah.
I toughen you up, but it's
I
just
don't like taking drugs. I rarely take
no.
anything for headaches. Like I'll be like, dude, I'll drink some water.
Yeah.
Like, and that usually works.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of things you can do that will
Hot
help.
shower.
That yeah, it's
Yeah.
a cold shower. Just depending on what you need.
What works for you, yeah.
But yeah, so
but lying over this, yes, that should definitely have it thrown out.
Yeah.
The immunity rights thrown out, because I can understand allowing you to have immunity from being tried on anything that may happen with side effects of this when the data you have given
is correct.
When you start giving in fudge data to begin with because you know you're going to have immunity from it, that means you had poor intentions to begin with.
Well, it was all about the money.
Yeah.
Because I think it was
always about the money.
It was like hospitals were incentivized to label things as COVID deaths because they got more funding, which means that if they get more funding, they can buy more of the vaccine, pay their staff more too. But then that incentivizes the vaccine more so because, okay, now these places can buy more doses, which increases their profits. And you don't get those profits if you don't get the authorization. And how do you get the authorization? You gotta have a product that ain't gonna fucking kill people. So one case involved a 63-year-old woman who died 41 days after receiving the shot, but whose death was only entered into the data pool 37 days later. Another was a 58-year-old woman whose death 72 days after vaccination went unreported for 26 days.
God.
So it's like, oh, she's dead? We'll wait a whole month.
But it kills me
to report it.
80% though.
Yeah.
80%. I could imagine fudging some numbers, but almost 100%. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. That is ridiculous, right? Timing of death reports raises questions. Michaels also raised issues regarding total death reports and their timing.
Cronus, no.
Since the death total from both study groups, 38, appeared surprisingly low to study authors, particularly during a pandemic, they undertook their own analysis based on population mortality expectations at the time. Assuming that age-adjusted death rates for the study subjects were similar to those of the general population, they estimated that 222 subjects should have died between the study times.
Yeah.
The reported number 38 is just 18% of the expected number. If I'm understanding this correctly, because I'm not like scientist, it's based on because they had such a large group of like 40,000 people, you would expect just based on regular amounts of time of people dying, just in any general population of that size, to be about 222 just from natural causes. Yeah. And so when they said it was only 38, they're like, that's weird. That doesn't fit with just a regular amount of deaths unrelated to the COVID vaccine. So that's why they looked into it. If I'm getting that correctly, I think that's what they were saying. So Michaels explains by the large number, 4.2% of discontinued subjects, the most concerning of these were subjects lost to follow-up, which means missing scheduled visits or other required activities. Pfizer tried to reach these subjects via phone, certified mail, or through their emergency contact, but despite their best efforts, could not account for 395 subjects who had dropped out. The authors wrote, these are not insignificant numbers and could easily account for the low number of deaths reported in the safety period of the trial. Given the importance of knowing the status of each trial subject, there should have been greater effort to locate these individuals. Oh, okay, so it could be that the 395 subjects that dropped out and then died later, and that was never reported, and that's why it was such a low.
Yeah, that's the 200 you were expecting.
Okay, so Michaels was also concerned over how certain trial centers may have dropped out subjects while others had none or just a few. 96 of 153 trial sites, so 63 reported 0 or 1 subjects lost to follow-up, and 22%, reported 2 to 5 dropouts. But 4 sites reported more than 20 subjects lost to follow-up, amounting to about 5% of all trial subjects. Since the vaccine makers were responsible for trial site oversight, Sites with excessive numbers of loss to follow up should have been evaluated for performance. So I guess they weren't. So, dude, it sounds like they really fucked up all
Yeah.
these like all the standards that are normally in place for these trials. They just literally like, no,
Yeah, out
we're
the
just gonna
window.
put random crap on paper.
Yeah.
Like, finally, based on the data, it appears Pfizer was in no hurry to enter death reports before the EUA submission deadline, particularly for that trial group. Of the 38 reported deaths, only one case was added on the day the subject died. Delays of 20 plus and 30 plus days were common. One death took 72 days to find its way to the death. That's like
Good God.
that's like 2.5 months.
Yeah.
And all were entered as occurring on the reporting day, not on the actual date of death.
Huh.
Of the 8 subjects in the vaccine group that should have been reported by December 10th, the EUA application cutoff, the average reporting delay was 17.5 days for subjects in the vaccine group, but just 5.9 days for deaths among subjects in the placebo group. So the people we give the vaccine to,
Yeah.
the average is 2.5 weeks. And in the placebo group where we didn't give them anything, so there's no reason to have a
Fudge anything.
delay, it's less than a week. That's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
That's wow. So yeah, they should lose they should
Yeah.
absolutely lose the
immunity.
liability immunity, hands
Yeah.
down. That's ridiculous. Like, so yeah, so hard segue. Mike Pence dropped out of the race.
Did he?
Yeah.
Huh.
I mean, come on, was he ever gonna win?
No.
No, he was so bland. He was so boring. Like, he had zero career. Like, he was just what's his name? Oh shit, I can't even remember.
Bro.
No, DeSantis.
No.
That's how far DeSantis has fallen that I couldn't remember his fucking name.
Yeah.
Fucking, he's like DeSantis in 50 years. Like, that's what I imagine DeSantis to be, is Mike
Yeah.
Pence, because DeSantis has zero personality. He can't take a joke. But yeah, but he dropped out.
Yeah. So that's how you meant Ross Perot, because he was always in and out of races, wishy-washy, but he had personality.
There was just no no. I just thought I'd mention that.
Yeah.
So we have this other one. This one I just want to talk about. I just wanted to talk about
Kronos,
this
no.
one because I used to do like delivering food and stuff. So DoorDash now warns no tip delivery will result in a slower delivery.
Well, that's just common sense. Nobody's gonna want, if you don't give a
Well,
good tip, nobody's gonna.
But here's the thing: I've worked for these companies. You know, the most recent one that I worked for a while back, I think it was like 2 years now, was Uber Eats, right?
Yeah.
Thing is I get it on both sides, because it's like, if I see a delivery that's $2, I'm not taking that delivery. So if they don't tip, then yeah, I'm probably not going to take that contract. But at the same time, why should they be required to tip before service has been rendered? You tip for good service, not before the service.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, okay, well, if I can't change the tip after the service,
Yeah.
you know what happens. But that's been another big thing, is tip baiting. They'll try to tip and all that stuff. But here's the thing: DoorDash is now warning customers that if they don't add a tip for their deliveries, so like when you go to the tip like edit thing, you hit 0, it pops up and is like, you might not get it fast, like whatever. And I'm just like, dude, so like, even if I was to tip, right? A lot of drivers do multiple apps.
Yeah.
So they'll have DoorDash running, Uber Eats, and like Favor. So like, you're gonna be lucky if you're the first one they drop off.
Yeah.
Because like with DoorDash and I think Uber, you can pay for faster delivery. You
Yeah.
can pay like a $2 surcharge or whatever. And it's funny because I'll do that and I'll see a motherfucker drive the complete opposite direction, go up here, stop for about 5 minutes, and then come my way. And I'm like, well, I know it wasn't an Uber Eats delivery because my shit would have been first.
Yeah.
So he was probably doing DoorDash. And I'm like, oh, so why did I pay for the added delivery when it was, you know.
Yeah.
So them doing this, I feel, is just incentivizing people to stop using DoorDash.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's already expensive enough. I mean, freaking McDonald's is like $30 to get like a freaking Big Mac to your house. Like,
Yeah.
so Yeah, I just wanted to mention that because that's ridiculous. You guys in the comments below, let me know. Do you even use DoorDash anymore, or like is this something that affects it?
People spend too much time eating out now. Now they're because they're too lazy to cook. Now they're too lazy to even go get their food.
I used to be that
And then
lazy.
people want to bitch
Yeah.
about not having money. Well, look how much you spend and eat and take out.
I gotta stop going to Whataburger, but it's so hard because it's right next to my house.
At least you're not door dashing it.
Still, it's so fucking expensive. Like 20, I got to the point where I was like, dude, I need to start using the Whataburger app because then I can gain points and get free food at some point.
Yeah.
Because I had spent like a couple $100 at this place over the course of like a month, and I'm like, I could have like 2 or 3 free meals at this point with the points I
Yeah.
would have earned, but I didn't, and so now I'm
I mean,
sad.
even if you just keep your receipts, they'll give you a free burger.
Yeah. Alrighty, guys. So now for our final story. This is probably the most controversial one.
Uh-oh.
Bud Light becomes the official beer of the UFC.
So the UFC's now a bunch of fucking fairies. Good God.
Yeah. So yeah.
How many Dick Tuckers are going to be in the octagon now?
Yeah, right. So Bud Light and the UFC are reuniting as the beer maker continues to pour dollars into its marketing after its partnership with a trans influencer sparked a sharp sales decline earlier this year. The two companies announced Tuesday that the beer company is becoming the official sponsor of the UFC in a new multi-year, not just 1 year, multi-year marketing partnership that goes into effect January 1st, 2024. Yeah, that's a dumb fucking idea.
Yeah.
Like, according to the news release, Anheuser-Busch will receive a deep level of integration into key UFC assets, ranging from live events, broadcast features, in-arena promotion, original content distribution, through their digital and social media platforms. But
once you go that gay, that extreme, that fast, do you really go the exact opposite, balls to the wall so fast?
they're trying to save their brand.
Or do you ease into it and gain people's trust back?
The thing is, I wasn't even so pissed off that it was a trans thing as it was that they were marketing to kids.
Yeah.
Because Dylan Mulvaney's audience was primarily kids.
Yeah.
And so they were basically promoting it to children.
Yeah.
By proxy.
Because that was his followers.
Yeah. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, so not only are you supporting something that most Americans don't support, but now you're also trying to like market to kids. It's like, dude, you just like 2 faux pas in one. Come on.
Yeah.
So, Bud Light will also receive prominent branding at every UFC event and will be integrated into custom broadcast features in the pay-per-view for the release. They were the original UFC's beer sponsor more than 15 years ago, but I'm proud to announce we are back in business together. But here's the thing. Do you know who the UFC's current sponsor for beer is? Modelo, the one that everybody went to when they got rid of Bud Light.
Yeah.
Everybody went to Modelo. So the UFC is siding with
a grandbaby man.
The UFC is siding with Anheuser-Busch over Modelo, which is what everybody went to, which is what everybody is drinking.
Yeah.
Instead of Bud Light. How fucking dumb do you have to be?
Yeah.
Bud Light must have dropped like millions of dollars on this.
Yeah,
to make it worthwhile, because I don't see a reason why they would do it other than that.
Yeah.
They say there are many reasons why I chose to go with Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light, most importantly because I feel we're very aligned when it comes to our core values. And what the UFC brand stands for. Oh, really?
Lord have
mercy.
Oh,
really? Okay, I'm looking forward to all the incredible things we will do in the years ahead. Are you sure about that? Like, are you sure that they align with your core values here? Because, like, are you saying that the UFC is now going woke? Or are you saying that Anheuser-Busch is trying to back away from their previous position? Because if they're doing that, they should come out and apologize, which they haven't done.
Yeah, and if UFC's going woke, they're in trouble.
And I was watching a podcast where they were talking about this, and one of the guys had the number to some of the UFC guys. Yeah. And when he told them about it, they had no idea. And now they're pissed off about it. And a lot of the guys who fight in the UFC are not going to deal with this. They're not going to wear freaking branded crap. They're not going to talk about it. Hell, they might even shit on Bud Light.
Same thing happened with NASCAR when they tried to go woke.
Yeah. So I just I said, but I personally was like, dude, boycott the UFC. You have until it goes into effect
Yeah.
to boycott it and make a change. Because once it goes into effect, you're locked into that contract.
Yeah.
And unless Bud Light does some dumb shit, like
You're stuck
again,
with it.
you're stuck with it. So I personally would be like, look, man, you should really, everyone should stop dealing with the UFC right now and watch some other because there are other alternatives. They're not as popular, but there's
Yeah.
other UFC stuff
Style.
that you can watch that isn't the main UFC. So I just they tried to partner with Harley Davidson and that didn't work out. Then they tried to do the what was it the American can for the veterans and that didn't work out. Now they're going after the UFC. Do they really think that that's going to work? Like there were some comments that people were like, "Oh well, I don't care. I like the UFC. I'm just not going to drink the beer. So, who cares?" I'm like, "But you don't understand. Them sponsoring it means that they're displacing another beer company that should be the one making the money, getting the profits. They're going to make money from this because if you're seeing Bud Light everywhere at the events and they're getting franchise deals, then that means that they're going to be serving primarily Bud Light at events.
Yeah.
So you're going to go there and the Bud Light's going to be $2 a beer and Modelo's $8 a beer. What do you think people are going to buy more?
Yeah.
It's going to be that. And so it comes down to what's at the events, what people are going to buy.
Yeah.
So it's not just that they're advertising, it's that too. And so by them doing this and you ignoring it and still supporting the UFC and giving the UFC money, you're going to be supporting Bud Light.
Kronos, no. Squeaky dog.
I don't see why they thought it was a good idea.
It's definitely not. I mean, I can see where Budweiser thinks it's a good idea.
Oh,
why UFC would have accepted that, because it is definitely not for their brand, period.
No. But hey, freaking whatever. I don't really watch UFC anyway, so it's not a big deal for me to like not watch it anymore because I think most of what I did was, I'd sometimes watch it on my phone, but most of the time it was at bars or whatever.
Yeah.
But now I'm just like, okay, I'll just watch like, I don't know, football or baseball or, whatever else. Cause the woke stuff for them is kind of past. Like they kind of like walked that back, I think like a year or two ago because they realized that they were losing viewership. So, I don't have a problem starting to get back into football and stuff again. But the UFC just recently did this, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but if you just did this, I'm not gonna watch your stuff. Like, so, but yeah, I mean, dude, so much stuff has happened in the last 2 weeks. We're on the verge of World War III.
Yeah,
freaking, they're ruining all of our favorite things.
They're just pissing in everybody's Cheerios all around the board.
Like, oh, have you gotten some piss yet? No, you haven't? Okay, let's come here,
Yeah, it's like the Oprah of shit sandwiches. And you get a shit sandwich. And you get a shit sandwich. I'm fucking shit sandwich Oprah here.
I didn't get one. Look under your seat. Oh my god, it's a shit sandwich.
Oh, I got a shit sandwich too. I fucking love you.
I got a yellow bowl of Cheerios. Yay! Like, just, oh my god.
At what point did our nation forget to not eat the yellow snow? Because we're all drinking the fucking Kool-Aid and liking it now.
Except for some people, that actually look into this shit. But, my god, dude, I'm tired of it.
The amount of shit that we the people, are allowing them to get away with is redonkulous.
It is.
Everybody wants to claim they're a lion, but they don't have no claws.
Nobody votes though. Like that's the problem. Like everybody just like blindly votes for shit. They don't look into the people that they vote for.
Nobody does research.
Like, oh, it's a Democrat. Yes. Oh, it's a Republican. Great. And
there's good Democrats and there's bad Democrats. There's good Republicans and bad Republicans.
Like I voted for shit. Who was it? Cornyn.
Yeah.
That motherfucker betrayed us. He voted for gun control, and I'm like, well, I'm not voting for him again.
Yeah.
But at the time, I wasn't that into politics the way I should have been. I
Yeah.
didn't do my research, and I was like, "Oh, he's a Republican. Okay, never making that mistake again." Like,
Well, it's just the fact that everybody's too lazy to want to do any kind of research or
yeah,
anything on their end. They want to do what they're told to do,
yeah,
and that's where we're screwing. Oh, by the way, here's your shit sandwich too.
yeah. Personally, I don't think everybody should be allowed to vote either.
Yeah.
Like, I think only certain people should be allowed to vote. Like, if
Well,
you are not involved in the daily life in your community, if you're not, if you just don't care, why are you voting?
yeah,
Like, people who are uninformed, don't know anything, you should know the policies of the people that you're voting for. If you don't, you shouldn't be voting.
yeah,
And look, that if that means that back then I shouldn't have voted, but
yeah.
you know,
Well, that's something in life that America used to have in their core values was some form of religion, mainly Christianity, and
yeah,
then the parents instilled that in their children, and also how government works and what's going on. And they would be informed by the elders of their family, and people would go on the guise of the elders of their clan. And that's the way it was for the longest time. And now we have gotten to the point where the elders no longer take care of everything in the family.
yep,
They're not the glue anymore. They're not large family functions and family reunions like there used to be back in the day. And it's all dwindling down. So people in younger generations don't have that higher or older generation to look for advice and all this and that. So they're going on the guise of what's popular. Well, what's popular isn't usually what's right for
yeah.
humanity. It's going to be what's more comfortable or pleasant.
Well, even look at the way that the family units work now. It used to be the way that like most Hispanic families live now, where it's like grandma, mom and dad, and the kids all live in the same household or
Yeah,
relatively near each other,
yeah,
so that way you could be supportive of each other. The grandkids are over at grandma and grandpa's while mom and dad do something, whatever, no big deal. They watch the kids, or mom and dad help the grandparents because they can't live on their own, whatever.
yeah,
Now, with the way that our culture has perpetuated, like, oh, you got to go to college, you got to move away for college, you
yeah.
have to
It's all about
leave the
getting
nest. It's
away.
all about getting away. You leave the state and then you stay there after you graduate college, and then you build a life there, completely away from your family,
Yeah,
away from everything, and then you have no kids want to take care of their parents when they're old. You have no grandparents to deal with the grandkids when the parents want to go out, and then people are wondering why, like, you're these these families are getting sick and tired of the kids. It's like, well, because you're not meant to always be the ones taking care of them.
yeah,
Sometimes you get the grandparents to take care of them, like,
yeah.
but now it's paying babysitters and nannies, and then the kids
The
have like
television
weird
for babysitting.
television, and then you have these kids who are getting like weird social interactions because
Hmm.
they're not around their parents all the time
Yeah,
or with their grandparents. They should be with their grandparents, but now they're with freaking nanny number four, and they're not getting the attachments and stuff that
yeah,
they're supposed to. And then you have single motherhood. Like, guys are not incentivized to stay around because they get punished for getting divorced or having kids with somebody. So like you have to lie, and well, I shouldn't say it, but like these guys feel the need to lie about what their name is when they hook up with a woman, and then they disappear into the night, and the woman can't find them. Now they're a single mother, and then they're relying on the state.
yeah,
But they should be relying on, if that is the case, if the family unit was still around, then they could rely on their parents, their
yeah,
grandparents. But they can't do that because
yeah,
they moved away for college, and now they live somewhere on their own, and then they have to deal with it with themselves. Like,
yeah,
the way that the culture has perpetuated this need to go to college when college is basically a waste of money, and the need to get away from your parents and start your own thing, and like the disintegration of the entire family, not just the nuclear family, but like the entire extended family
yeah.
support system, is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, yeah. It's no longer the nuclear family like from the 50s,
Yep.
the whole leave it to beaver kind of thing.
Yeah.
And there's no more morals really passed down from parents to children anymore. Uh, thank God when I grew up, my parents didn't put too many life values and lessons in me, but I had
Yeah.
my grandparents around and they did.
Yeah.
And just the basics of respect and
Yep.
just common sense and courtesy,
Yeah.
things that are getting lost. And
I
it's
mean, well, it's not even that they're getting lost. It's you're being shamed for it now.
yeah,
Like the women who don't want men to hold the doors open for them. It's like I'm trying to be chivalrous. I do it for everybody,
yeah,
right? It's not just women, but I was taught that you should hold the door for women, but I do it for everybody. You know, I see a guy going in or coming out, open the door, it doesn't matter.
yeah.
Woman coming in, coming out, that's part of the upbringing. But it's gotten to a point where you get yelled at because they're like, I'm a strong, independent woman. I don't need you to hold the door open for. It's like, okay, bitch, fuck.
Yeah,
Like okay, but like
just want to be a gentleman.
that I still have a problem with that because I was raised a certain way, so I have a problem being like, okay, and then it feels like I'm being walked all over because I still held the door open for this bitch who
Yeah,
just said this shit to me, but like I'm like I want to close the door, but like it doesn't. It's not in my nature. Like
yeah.
now, I've just stopped holding the doors for most people in general because I'm just like I just
It shouldn't even be a struggle. If you're trying to be polite, it should just be common courtesy.
yeah.
Say thank you. Not, but people just have chips on their
Well,
shoulders, walking around trying to find a reason to bitch at
it's
somebody.
not even just that. Like it's there's the common courtesy thing and the respect thing, but then there's also like the whole dating aspect of it where like you're not supposed to approach women in certain situations. It's like I don't like when do I?
Yeah. And there's the siren. Somebody came in. It's okay.
But yeah, I mean we really need we need to elect people in that you have researched that are going to be good.
Yeah.
We need to bring back the family, just the extended family, the entire support system and
Yeah.
stop with the whole moving away crap. Like, just go to a trade school that's near you. Like, that would probably be better. You'd probably make more money, to be
It's
honest.
already been proven that people prefer somebody who's been in the workforce with job skills versus somebody who has
Exactly.
an education and no applied knowledge.
Exactly. So we need to do all that, and then we need to, after we elect the people, and we need to get them to stop funding this crap that makes no difference to us in other countries, funding these wars and bring that stuff here. I'm not even talking about just like building a wall. I'm talking about like we can send $105 billion, millions and billions of dollars overseas, but we can't fix a bridge
Yeah.
like in a good amount of time, if at all.
Yeah.
Like how long has Dallas been under construction and the roads are still trash?
Yeah.
But we're sending all this money to where? To what?
Yeah.
Like
When Dallas roads have been under construction
yeah.
since my earliest memories of childhood.
Yeah, it's
You know,
like that same patch, that pothole. Yeah, I've every car I've owned has hit that pothole. Like,
I grew up on I-45, and that road has been under construction since the 80s, and it's
yeah,
still not done.
but and you can really see the difference between the two because it's like NTTA tollway where it's privately owned and they're funded. When shit goes down there, fucking like a week, it's done. We're good.
Yeah.
Fucking done. Public roads, fucking 2 years and they're still not done.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, they'll be done in 3, but
Yep.
it's probably like 5, 6, 7 years, and you're like, what the hell is taking so long?
Yeah.
Like what? So
Well, look,
yeah,
like I said, they've been working on I-45 for so long, and they're already almost to the Oklahoma border. But they're about by the time they get there, it's going to be time to go back and
start
redo.
from the beginning.
Yeah, because it took so
Like,
long.
it's just so funny because like our modern roads are like, are they like designed to like fail? Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's what it is. It's planned obsolescence of the roads, so that way they can go back and do it again. Because these Roman roads got 2,000 years on them, and they still freaking work.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now, are they cobblestone and they're not the smoothest ride, but they're still there?
Yeah, they're
Like
there. Our roads aren't going to be there in 2,000 years.
no, they'll be gone in 6 months. Like
Yeah,
you get
plants grow through it. It's done.
yeah, plants grow through it. You drive the wrong truck on the road, and then it freaking collapses.
Yeah.
Like the asphalt can't take it, or just oh my god, there's so
You'd think would have come up with a better material by now,
right. You would have thought,
better
but
processes.
of course not. But like I said, I'm pretty sure it's planned obsolescence. I think they want them to fail, so there's always construction to be done. But the problem with that is if we're always working on the roads, we can never fix our electrical grid. We can never fix the bridges. We can never fix like the train tracks, like
Yeah.
because we're so focused on the things that the majority of people are using.
Yeah.
So
I mean, hell, Route 66 is still in place, and why can't we even make the blacktop as strong as that
yeah.
was?
Well, No, I don't think many people use Route 66 anymore because like all the businesses
Exactly.
closed
Why
down.
is it still
Yeah,
there? Why is it not grown up through yet?
hey, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think. Well, there are sections that have been taken down. Like you could like you
Yeah,
used to be able
by
to do.
man.
Yeah, you used to be able to do the whole Route
You
66, and
can't now.
I wanted to do a Route 66 trip, but you can't now because like
Yeah,
you have to come on it and then off of it and then back on.
yeah.
And even when you're on it, like there's almost nothing around because all the businesses that used to be
Move to the
there
new highway.
moved to the new highway
Yep.
like miles away. So like if you're wanting to go to somewhere, you have to like take Route 66 and then like double back. It's just yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, I believe some of it's even privately owned now.
Yeah.
Like there's spots where it runs through people's property. They
Yeah.
have bought that section of Route
Yeah,
66.
there's parts that they took down, there's parts that are part of it, and there's parts that are privately owned. I think there's like one specific section that's like historically Route 66, and that's the one that is like the tourist attraction. So
Yeah.
that's where stuff is. But like you can't do the whole thing.
Well, we still plan on taking a trip, but we're gonna go from up through Texas into New Mexico. Well, North Texas. We're already in Texas.
Yeah.
Into New Mexico, and then from there all the way to the California border.
But not in the
But
California.
as soon as we see the border, you turn and come back.
Yeah.
I was like, man, should I just get out and touch a toe on the state line to say that I've been in California? I was like, no, I don't want to ruin my reputation.
Yeah.
I'm doing good.
I've unfortunately been there. It's not the best. Like even when I went there, I went there 9 years ago, something like that,
Yeah.
maybe even 10, and it was still not that good.
Just
like
trash.
because we went to San Francisco,
Yeah.
and it was like, first of all, the streets suck because like you're at like a 45-degree angle. I don't know how those cars last more. The insurance there must be fucking ridiculous because
Yeah.
like one parking brake fails and you got a street of mayhem. But our Durango, we were in a Dodge Durango at that time. And the back was loaded with all the luggage. So there were times my dad like stopped the car. You could feel the back end of the vehicle lift off the ground, and I'm like, "Yo, we need to get the fuck out of here right now because this is not cool."
Yeah.
Like, so I don't know how anybody deals with the streets, but then you had the areas. There's homeless like everywhere,
Yeah.
and back then it wasn't that bad because you had like specific areas where they were.
Yeah.
Now apparently it's like the whole city.
Yeah.
But like even back then it was still like downtown again Dallas. Like
Yeah. Still
homeless
bad.
encampments and yeah, it was still bad. And so I would never want to go back to California like
Yeah.
ever for any reason
At all.
at all. I don't even want to go to Austin because it's basically little California.
Yeah.
Like the only reason I think I'd go there is for the comedy mothership to go to
Yeah.
Joe Rogan's place for a comedy show, but that's about it. Like
Yeah.
and even then
Yeah, I went a long time ago to Austin. Last time I went was for a Marley Fest down there. Now, don't get me wrong, that was fun, but just the way it had changed because I'd probably been 20 years since I'd been there
yeah.
prior, and it was completely different. I mean, because used to you went to Austin, it was cowboy redneck heaven. You know, it was just as southern western as it could be.
Last time I was out there, I had my open carry handgun on and a cowboy hat, and everybody looked around at me like I was about to shoot them.
Yeah,
like
it's not that.
But it didn't. I mean, I could. Some people it wasn't, but you probably could tell exactly the people that I'm talking about. It's the dude with the long hair is wearing like rainbow booty shorts, riding around on roller skates with like the rose tinted glasses, and I'm like, dude, surprisingly, there was more than one of those guys.
Yeah,
I saw like 4 or 5, and I'm like, is it the same guy or are these just different people wearing the same shit? Like,
you see, and people looking at you open carrying like that there is exactly why I can't open carry at Target anymore. Just the amount of looks. Now we're in.
You go to Target still?
Yeah, and here
after the controversy with Target. No, I go to anywhere but Target.
No, I still go to Target for a few things. Yeah, I'll give it to them like their baby toys for the baby birthdays. They've got a good line of wholesome.
I stopped going the moment I saw tuck friendly bathing suits for children. So.
I thought that was ridiculous.
I thought the most ridiculous part of that was the fact that they, instead of getting rid of it because people were mad, they just moved it to the back of the store. Yeah. It's like, oh, you mean like instead of seeing it when I walk in, I just go like this and I can still see that shit?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And marketed to children again.
And yeah, marketing to children. So that was the thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't. Yeah,
My
I
head's
don't
gonna
shop at Target
explode.
anymore.
It's,
I shop at like Kroger or Walmart.
yeah.
Those still aren't the best, but at least they don't have a controversy that's recent.
Yeah. Well,
So
I don't go there often. It just really surprised me that in the small redneck town that we're in, there's enough liberal shopping in that store that I felt uncomfortable walking in there. The amount of people staring and looking and just stink eyeing me.
I don't give a fuck.
Uh,
I revel in the stink eye.
yeah, but I'm not here
Because here's the thing:
to rock the boat or ripple the water.
the people that give you the stink eye, they're not going to be the ones trying to take it from you.
Yeah.
It's the guy that doesn't look your way that sneaks up on you and tries to take it from you. But that's why I have a two-stage retention holster. So.
And I'm not uncomfortable with the fact that I think someone's going to take it.
Yeah.
I'm just uncomfortable with the fact that people have that much hate and displaced towards me to begin with.
That's the thing though, is so those people that give you the stink eye, they're not going to do anything to you, right?
I know.
So there's nothing to worry about there.
I'm not worried.
The benefit for me is that those people are there. They have to experience me being there.
Mhm.
So they're getting exposure therapy, right? So if you go in there and you're like a complaining asshole Karen to employees, to these people, whatever, then you're portraying that negatively. Whenever I open carry, I'm the politest person.
Yeah.
I am the person who helps solve someone's problems if they need it. I talk to people. I paint myself in the best light possible for the benefit of those people. Because then they're sitting there going, some of them, not all of them, but some of them might be like, I thought that guy was going to be dangerous, but like, he helped that old lady, like, bag her groceries, or, he was polite to me, like,
And that's what I'm saying is my uncomfortableness has nothing to do with thinking anybody's going to take the gun or I have to worry about anybody doing anything. It's just the fact of everybody's displaced hate. Yeah. And I have a problem with that with a lot of things in this country right now. People are just hate mongers. Yeah. And that's what I didn't like. It's just,
I do it for the conversation, because I've had people actually come up to me and ask me. They're like, "Are you like?" I had this one African American lady. The African American lady, she comes up to me and she goes, "Can I ask you a question?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, whatever, shoot." And she goes, "Are you not afraid that somebody's gonna take that from you?" Pointing to my gun, and I'm like, "Oh no, not even a little bit. Like, it's in a two-stage retention holster." And then I explained to her the different types of holsters, the different types of guns, the different laws, this, and that. She's like, "Oh, I didn't know that." Like, I always just assumed that, it would be easy to have it taken from you. I'm like, no, I'm trained specifically to keep it in my holster and like react if somebody goes for that and all that stuff. And then, she started talking about like some of her experiences, and then we moved on to, why I open carry, and that sometimes I even open carry a rifle, because back at that time it was before they changed the laws. So if you were 21 or younger, the only legal way to carry a gun to defend yourself was to open carry a rifle. You couldn't have a handgun. Yeah. So she was like, "Really? Like, so you can't carry a handgun if you're 18 to 21, but you can carry a rifle?" I'm like, "Yeah, makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?" She's like, "Yeah, that doesn't make any sense at all." And I'm just like, "Yeah, that's why we're trying to change the laws." And then I had another guy who, also an African American guy, was from Chicago. He comes up to me, and this is a day where I'm open carry and I got my cowboy hat on, and he goes, "Yo, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. I gotta get a picture with you because I'm gonna show my friends when I go back. This is Texas right here." And I was just like, "Okay." Like, he's like, "You don't see this shit in Chicago. Like, you don't see it ever." And I was just like, yeah. He's like, "I love Texas. I think I might move here." I'm just like, "Fucking do it, bro.
Do it, man." So I'll welcome anybody here from any other state as long as they don't
funny that
corrupt it.
That it's always like the media paints it like African Americans are the liberal ones that don't like the guns. It has only been African Americans that have approached me to ask me for a picture, to ask me questions. The white liberals are the ones that have gotten me kicked out of stores because they call the cops. And I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. Like, it's so backwards the way the media portrays it all. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Like, I know so many black people who love guns, and then so many white people who are just like, scary. And I'm just like, but the media would have you think it's the other way around.
Yeah.
That it's all the white people who love the guns.
That's why the media is saying it. Definitely look into it, or
Well, that's why I think
or
gun
don't
control
agree,
in general is just racist.
or don't believe it.
Yeah, gun control in general is just racist on its face because that's how it started. I mean, they didn't want slaves to have the guns. So, anyway, we have rambled on quite a bit today, guys. I don't know how much of this is actually going to make it in, but yeah. So all that stuff. We're on the verge of World War III. We got the border wall or border razor wire is being lifted to let migrants in by the feds. So that's great. And some of those people coming through might be terrorists that want to, do harm to Americans. So if you are living in any border state, I suggest that you get your affairs in order and make sure that you are prepared at all times with your everyday carry, or if you don't want to carry a gun, at the very least carry medical supplies, know how to use it, stuff like that. I'm not saying anything's definitely going to happen, but it's at the point where it's vastly more likely to happen sometime in the near future. But with that being said, I appreciate all you guys, and we'll see you guys next time, probably about 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
Peace.